Hi, this is Rob. I'm going to be showing you how to do the exercises for the Math Antics video lesson, Multi-Digit Subtraction. Are you ready? Let's get started. Our first problem is 64 minus 51. Now the first thing we need to do is rewrite the problem in stacked form so we can use our procedure. So we have 64 on the top and 51 underneath with a minus sign. And now we go column by column. We have 4 minus 1, that equals 3. Then we have 6 minus 5, and that equals 1. So we put that in our answer line. And so we see that 64 minus 51 equals 13. And now we have 582 minus 61. Once again, we need to rewrite it in stacked form so we can use our procedure. So we have 582 on top and then lined up with it, making extra sure that the ones columns lined up. We have 61. We put in our line and our minus sign. Now we just go through column by column. We have 2 minus 1, that equals 1. Put that in the answer line. 8 minus 6, that equals 2. That goes in the answer line. And then 5 minus nothing. There's nothing in this number here in that column, so we just have 5 that we put in the answer line. And so we can see that 582 minus 61 equals 521. For this problem, we have 52 minus 14. So first things first, we need to rewrite it in stacked form. So we have 52, and then right below it, we have 14. Put in our line and our minus sign. Now we need to subtract. We have 2 minus 4. But of course, 4 is bigger than 2, so 2 is not big enough to subtract 4 from. So we need to borrow from the 5 over here. And that's not just 5, that's, it's in the next column over, so it actually represents 50. So we can borrow 10 from it. We cross it out, and then we put a 4 up here because we're taking 10 away, and so that 4 represents 40. And then we put a 1 right here that we borrowed. So now this is 12. So 12 minus 4 equals 8. So we put that in the answer line. And now we have 4 minus 1 in the next column over. 4 minus 1 equals 3. So 52 minus 14 equals 38. For this problem, we have 412 minus 75. And of course, the first thing we need to do is rewrite it in stacked form. So we have 412, and then lined up with those digits, we have 75. And we put a line underneath, subtraction symbol. Now we go column by column. So we have 2 minus 5. 2 is too small to subtract 5 from, so we need to borrow from the column on the left. We have a 1 there, so we cross out that 1. So we're going to borrow 1 from it. So 1 minus 1 is 0, so we put a 0 up here. And then the 1 that we borrowed, we write right next to the 2. So now we have 12 minus 5 equals 7. Write that in the answer line. Now we go on to the next column, and we have 0 minus 7. 0, of course, is too small, so we need to borrow for the 0 up here. So the next column over has a 4, so we cross that out. We borrow 1 from it, so 4 minus 1 is 3. Put that up there. And then the 1 that we borrow, we put right next to that 0 up here. So we have 10 minus 7. 10 minus 7 is 3. So that goes in the answer line. And then we have 3 and nothing to subtract from it. So we just put the 3 in the answer line. And we see that 412 minus 75 equals 337. For this problem, we have 203 minus 17. And this is already written in stacked form, so we don't need to rewrite it. We can just go right into the procedure. So we start with the first column. We have 3 minus 7. 3 is too small to subtract 7 from, so we need to borrow from the next column over. But the next column over is a 0. So what we do is we keep on going until we find, a digit that's not 0. And so we just have to go 1 over. So we have a 2 right there. So instead of borrowing just from this one digit here, we're going to borrow from both of these digits, which is 20. So we cross that out, cross out the 20, and then we subtract 1 from it, so that leaves us with 19. So we need to put the 19 and line it up with the columns that we have there, so we don't get confused. So then the 1 that we borrowed, we put right in front of this 3. So we have 13 minus 7, and 13 minus 7 is 6. So that goes in the answer line. Then we move on to the next column. We have 9 minus 1. 9 minus 1 is 8. Put that in the answer column. Next column over is just a 1 with nothing to subtract from it. So we put the 1 in the answer line. And so 203 minus 17 equals 186. For this problem, we have 1,000 minus 32. Now it's already in stacked form, so we don't need to rewrite it. We can just go right into the procedure. And our first column, the ones column, we have 0 minus 2. Now, of course, 0 is too small, so we need to borrow from the next column over. Now, since we have all these zeros in a row, you might get a little confused and think we're borrowing from 1,000. But remember, this is the number that we need to borrow for. So we have to look from this column over as to what we're borrowing. So we have a 0 here and a 0 here, so we need to go all the way till we have a digit that's not a 0, so that 1. So these 3 digits here are what we're borrowing from. So we're borrowing from 100. So cross those out. And so 100 minus 1 is 99. So we need to write the 99 above the 100 and line it up with the correct columns here. So the one that we borrowed, we write next to the 0 here. So now that's the 10. So we have 10 minus 2. It's 8. Put that in the answer line. Now we go on to the next column. Here we have 9 minus 3. And 9 minus 3 is 6. So we put that in the answer column, in the answer line, sorry. And then the next column over, we have 9, and there's nothing here to subtract from. So we just put the 9 right in the answer line. And then this column here doesn't exist anymore, because when we subtracted the 1 from it, we ended up with 2 digits instead of the 3. So there's no column right there anymore. We have our final answer. So 1,000 minus 32 equals 968. And now we have 6,085 minus 2,523. Now these are pretty big numbers, but we just follow the same procedure that we've been doing, and as long as we keep everything organized and lined up right, it's really not that much harder. All right, so let's start with the first column here, our ones place column. We have 5 minus 3. So that's good. We don't even have to borrow. 5 minus 3 is 2. That goes right in the answer line. Go to the next column, 8 minus 2. We don't have to borrow here either. 8 minus 2 is 6. Goes in the answer line. Oh, and now we have 0 minus 5, so we do have to borrow. So we borrow from the 6. That leaves us with 5 there. And then we put the 1 that we're borrowing by our 0. So we have 10 minus 5. 10 minus 5 is 5. Put that in the answer line. Now go on to the final column. We have 5 minus 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. So that goes in the answer line. And then we can put a comma in there just so it's easier to read. And we see that 6,085 minus 2,523 is 3,562. And now we have 50,000 minus 4,622. And once again, it's a big number. It might seem a little tricky, but we just follow the same rules as before. So we start in the ones place column. We have 0 minus 2. So we need to borrow, but we have a bunch of zeros here. So we need to figure out what number we're really borrowing from. Now, be sure not to count this first 0 here, because that's the one we're trying to subtract right now. So we need to borrow from the digits to the left of it. So ignore that one and look at, we have 3 zeros in this 5. So these are the digits we're borrowing from. We're borrowing from 5,000. So we'll cross that out. And 5,000 minus 1 is 4,000 999. And be very careful to keep these lined up, or else you're going to have a much tougher time on these columns if you don't know what's what. All right, so we subtracted 1 from 5,000, so that 1 we can put right here. And now we have 10 minus 2. 10 minus 2 is 8. That goes in the answer line. Go on to the next column. We now have 9 minus 2. 9 minus 2 is 7. That goes right in the answer line. Now, next column, 9 minus 6. 9 minus 6 is 3. Goes in the answer line. Next column, we have 9 minus 4. And 9 minus 4 is 5. So put that in the answer line. Now we have 4 and nothing to subtract from it. So 4 goes in the answer line. We'll put in our comma after 3 digits so it's easier to read. And we see that 50,000 minus 4,622 equals 45,378.